Hello and welcome to Climate Watch. I'm Fei Fei. Back in August, I visited a World Heritage Site in Yunnan Province. Jingmai Mountain is the world's first UNESCO heritage site with a theme of tea. Their centuries-old tea forests not only follow sustainable farming methods, but have also formed a human-nature relationship that can inspire us to rethink our position on this planet as we learn to build up resilience in the face of climate change. The trip opened up a new world for me, and I hope this story can do the same for you. Along the Lancang River 1800 years ago, a tribe wandered on the mountains, fleeing from wars with rival clans. On their search for a safe haven, they were struck by something even deadlier than wars. An epidemic that swept through the group. One man, gravely ill, was said to have plucked some leaves at random and chewed on them before drifting into sleep. When he woke up, something remarkable had happened. His pain was gone, his appetite had returned, and his vision was clear once more. He reported this miracle to his leader. "How did you recover?" the captain asked. "I don't know," the man replied. "The only thing I remember is keeping a leaf from a tree in my mouth before I fell asleep." "Which tree?" asked the captain. And then they found the tree and shared its leaves with the rest of the tribe. And that's how the Bulang people survived a devastating outbreak some 1800 years ago. From then on, they gave this particular type of trees a new name, La.
Where does this la come from? All trees with green leaves are called la, but only this particular tree can be called la. The tones are different. From that moment, la became the only medicine of the Bulang people. Whatever the illness, they turned to la for a cure.
This story is told by 82-year-old Su Guowen, who spent decades collecting Bulang oral traditions to piece together their history. As a people without a written language, much of Bulang's past has been preserved only through storytelling. Su gathered these stories and compiled them into books, works that today serve as key references for anthropologists across China. I wasn't alone when I visited him in his home on Jingmai Mountain in Yunnan Province. A stream of PhD students and researchers were also there to seek his knowledge. Su told me he even keeps spare rooms in his home for curious visitors who wish to stay. According to Su, the role of La quickly expanded, from a miraculous medicine to food to offerings for gods and gifts for neighboring tribes. And La means tea trees. Over time, tea, or la, became inseparable from the life, culture, and identity of the Bulang people.
As we studied the migration routes of the Bulang, we noticed something remarkable. Wherever they settled, whether briefly or for generations, they always left behind traces of tea planting.
And when it comes to planting tea, the Bulang people do it in their own way, very different from most tea gardens around the world. In fact, it's more accurate to call them forests instead. Here, intercropping is the norm. Tea trees grow alongside a wide variety of other trees and plants. Tall trees like banya, camphor, and fruit trees form the upper layer, shielding the tea trees from harsh sunlight and keeping the air humid, perfect conditions for Yunnan tea trees that prefer the shade. And tea trees occupy the middle layer, while herbs and grasses thrive closer to the ground. This setup creates a self-sustaining ecosystem. For instance, shade from the taller trees provides a home for spiders, which in turn keep harmful pests under control. Water is conserved, and soil is richer in nutrients. Weeds are naturally suppressed. On the trunks and branches, parasitic plants and mushrooms grow, forming a small food bank for both the local people and the wildlife. In a way, every link in this system reinforces the other, preserving biodiversity in the forest while also giving the tea its distinctive flavor.
The tea of Jingmai Mountain draws in the essence of 10,000 acres of forest and absorbs the fragrance of countless flowers and grasses. When we drink it today, we can taste those aromas, the honeyed notes, the fragrance of flowers. These are flavors you won't find anywhere else. And where do they come from? From the support of a complete living ecosystem.
Sipping on the caramel-colored tea, I grew more and more curious about Bulang people's tea forests. And that's when I reached out to Nankang, once the head of one of Jingmai Mountain's 9 villages. Now retired, he runs his own tea business, and he agreed to take us into his family's forest. You see, Jingmai Mountain has 5 large ancient tea forests. They're divided into smaller plots owned by different families, mostly of the Dai and Bulang communities. Most of these forests aren't open to tourists, since they remain the core production bases for Jingmai tea. The one Nankang showed us was no exception. And since Jingmai was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List, the forests have been under even stricter protection, both for their natural environment and for the cultural practices built around them. So it was truly a privilege to step into his family's forest, but it also came with responsibility. We had to be mindful not to disturb the wildlife or pick anything at random. Once inside, it didn't feel like a cultivated garden at all. Tea trees were interwoven with other plants in a living tapestry. I could hear a chorus of bird calls, more than a few species, even to my entrained ear. It was also layered with the hum of insects in the bushes and grass. Spider webs stretched across nearly every tree. For someone who spent most of his or her life in the city, the environment felt almost too raw at times. Not every insect was harmless, and walking into spider webs wasn't exactly pleasant. At one point, I even spotted a small snake slithering across the dirt path. Nankang told me, casually, it was venomous. He was, of course, unfazed. For him, these encounters are part of daily life. For me, on the other hand, it was just a little bit too exciting. As we walked, Nankang introduced us to different plants and insects. Explaining how their traditions of tea cultivation had once been shaken by modernization. When China's reform and opening up began, the tea market opened to the world, and the world discovered Yunnan's tea farmers. In the 1980s and 90s, business people from Taiwan, already successful in exporting oolong tea, came searching for the next big thing. And they quickly found it in Yunnan, one of tea's birthplaces, where unique varieties and processing methods create smoky, peppery, caramel-like flavors. These flavors captivated tea drinkers from Taiwan to Hong Kong and soon across Southeast Asia. Demand for Pu'er tea surged. Prices skyrocketed more than 100-fold between the 1990s and 2000s, and tea planting spread across Yunnan, including Jingmai Mountain. Even the city of Simao renamed itself Pu'er to ride the wave. But along with the boom came changes. Many villagers abandoned their ancient tea forests for terraced plantations. Chemical fertilizers and pesticides were introduced, copied from other tea farms across the world. At the same time, poverty remained a reality on Jingmai. Nankang's village wasn't even connected to power or road networks until around 2008. He said, simply asking people to maintain tradition was not enough.
Relying
only on village rules and agreements wasn't enough to convince people to continue our old ways. Poverty is frightening. When people are hungry, they'll do whatever it takes to put food on the table. Back then, that often meant cutting down trees for quick cash. And with money, they could eat. So to tackle poverty, we had to address people's livelihoods first.
The Pu'er boom also drove demand for processing. Factories needed fuel to dry and fry tea leaves, but with power in short supply, many turned to firewood. Villagers began cutting trees and selling the wood. Forests shrank. Terraced monocultures replaced diverse ecosystems, hardening soils and wiping out biodiversity. Tea trees of a single non-native species were planted tightly together, and taller trees were felled to ensure sunlight. And yet, Yunnan tea still fetched low prices on the global market. By 2010, as deforestation crept toward the ancient tea forests, pressure mounted to rethink the model. Nankang was among the first to confront the challenge.
Researchers from the Yunnan Academy of Social Sciences came to Jingmai. They found that our community depended too much on cutting firewood and on chemical fertilizers. The question was, how could people make a living sustainably? By 2006, a plan was introduced to transform terraced tea fields and return to Bulang's traditional methods of cultivation. In the end, it all came back to traditions.
The first step was to replace terraced tea trees with local species and to revive abandoned ancient sites.
The ancient tea forests are planted in every direction, east, west, south, and north, staggered yet orderly, with plenty of space for air to circulate. Among the tea trees grow taller trees whose fallen leaves decompose into natural fertilizer. With this layout, pests are fewer, so there is no need for chemical fertilizers or pesticides. That's why we expanded this system to cover 130 hectares.
But there was hesitation. Ancient-style planting meant fewer trees, as each kept at least 2 meters apart, so yields dropped and income would suffer.
This caused overall tea output on Jingmai Mountain to fall sharply. At that point, the city government stepped in. For the first year or two, they bought all of our tea directly, and that was when we saw hope again.
Nankang recalls, the project cost tens of millions of yuan, but the government had its reasons for investing. Around 2007, the Pu'er tea bubble burst, and prices collapsed. Global financial shocks and speculative trading played a part, yet tea made from ancient trees held firm. Its mellow, complex flavors, unique to Yunnan, couldn't be replicated elsewhere. And those flavors were inseparable from the forests themselves. At the same time, provincial governments began placing the tea industry higher on their agendas, first in Fujian and then in Yunnan. By 2021, eco-friendly tea cultivation was explicitly prioritized in central government policy. It was outlined in the guidelines on promoting the healthy development of the tea industry, which emphasized planting the right varieties in the right regions. A national consensus had formed. tea must be grown in harmony with nature. And it made sense. Eco-friendly cultivation not only boosts income, but also restores and protects the environment. Jingmai offers a powerful template. The intercropping system of its ancient tea forests is now recognized by policymakers and scientists as a model of sustainable agriculture. By reducing the need for chemicals and protecting biodiversity and enhancing long-term value, these forests demonstrate that tradition can guide modern environmental and economic solutions. What's happening on Jingmai Mountain is part of a broader transformation in China's rural landscapes, where traditional knowledge is being revalued through modern concepts like the understory economy. The principle is simple: make better use of the space under forest canopies without cutting down trees. Across China, farmers are experimenting with understory crops, growing medicinal herbs beneath pine trees in Anhui, cultivating mushrooms in bamboo groves in Fujian, or planting tea shrubs under taller native trees in Zhejiang. These systems not only diversify income, but also mimic natural ecosystems, conserving soil moisture, enhancing biodiversity, and reducing reliance on chemicals. Lin Kuo-cheng from TNC's China program describes how such approaches can strengthen the bond between people and their environment. Farmers shift from simply using the forest to actively protecting it.
我们的鸡是一只128，每年到了那个中秋节。
These roosters are priced at 128 yuan each and especially popular during holidays. They are in high demand and delicious, which motivates the locals. The forest becomes the foundation for their livelihoods. Without it, the roosters can't thrive. This directly ties economic benefits to environmental protection. It's a mutual relationship. The forest supports the community, and the community safeguards the forest.
所以它就要帮助我们去来维护这块林子的安全。
In many ways, Jingmai's ancient tea forests represent an early form of the understory economy. Tea trees coexist with taller trees, herbs, and fungi, creating resilience that monoculture farms rarely achieve. Today, policymakers are beginning to recognize the economic and ecological value of many similar traditional systems across the country. Back on Jingmai Mountain, communities continue to carry the tradition forward, not just through Su Guowen documenting stories or Nankang preserving forests, but through the younger generations who are building on these foundations. Are traditions still alive among young people? Do they still feel this connection with the mountain, with tea? In another village, I met Xiangong, a Dai woman in her 40s, who spent more than 20 years creating a business model centered on Jingmai tea. Behind her newly renovated B&B, she's preserved a small tea forest where visitors can experience tea picking. Then, just across the road, visitors can learn to fry and dry tea leaves in her factory. On the second floor, a shop displays a wide range of tea products: fermented, half-fermented, over-fermented, pressed into flat plates or small bowls, with vintages that, like wine, offer subtle, different flavors year by year. In the tea house, Xiangong introduced at least a dozen products and told me that growing up, she and her family had always taken tea for granted, never imagining its full potential.
只要嫩芽出来，你就去采，制作成干茶，你就可以卖钱。 As soon as the tender buds came out, we picked them and processed them into dry tea that could be sold. The rough tea was loosely packed into sacks. Buyers would come directly to the house, and the price was wherever they decided. So from a young age, we always thought of tea as something that grew every year and could be sold right away. Even later, when we set up a cooperative, up till 2010 or 2012, almost 100% of our harvest was sold off. Whatever little was left over, that was just for us to keep and taste ourselves.
Xiangong's cooperative now brings together over 200 households across different villages. The cooperative collects tea leaves at agreed fixed prices, processes them, and sells them to tea companies. She has plans to expand even further.
Without changing how everyone farmed, we needed a stable channel to sell our tea. So in 2010, we set up a cooperative. Back then, our business volume reached more than 10 million yuan in revenue. By 2014, I went to Kunming for an exchange and met an expert. He told me that while cooperatives work well, at a certain stage, they hit limitations. For example, it's hard to connect directly with broader markets and distribution channels. He suggested we form a company. That would give us a more stable, long-term way to grow. So at the end of that year, we registered a company. Now, instead of just selling raw leaves, the cooperative also supplies our company, which then produces pressed tea cakes.
She dreams of creating her own tea brand someday. And meanwhile, her B&B is run by a hospitality team, and she envisions it evolving into a resort. I also met young people in their 20s tapping into digital platforms, live streaming or sharing content on Xiaohongshu and Douyin to promote products and culture, like Ye Xiang, a young businesswoman from the Bulang community.
I feel at ease living up there in the mountains, partly because I genuinely like it. Otherwise, people often ask me at my age why I don't go out and spend more time elsewhere. But honestly, I never feel comfortable outside. The pressure is too much. Here, if you want to do something, you can usually make it happen. There are still plenty of opportunities.
I also met a young Dai singer performing at Xiangong's B&B, blending folk singing with pop music. And a mixed group of Bulang, Lahu, and Han youth running a B&B, a tea house, a coffee shop, and a small music workshop teaching traditional Bulang instruments to children. For them, preserving tradition doesn't mean freezing time. It means adapting, using modern tools to showcase ancient practices and proving that eco-friendly tea can thrive in today's economy. As I sip another cup of caramel-colored tea, I realized Jingmai's story is more than just tea. It's about how ancient wisdom and modern innovation can meet in the middle, sustaining livelihoods, restoring ecosystems, and keeping traditions alive for generations to come. Before we go, I want to share a small detail from our week on the mountain. Bees often flew into houses as we sat down with locals. The contrast between us, who were terrified of them, and the local people who carried on as if nothing was unusual, was striking. "Oh yeah, they normally show up around this time every day," they said. And I realized that's how it's supposed to be. Bees are meant to buzz around. Spider webs will catch you if you walk through their webs. Snakes will slither nearby. Yes, it can be uncomfortable for humans, even dangerous. But this is nature. Vast, beautiful, sometimes bites. It provides air, food, music, and life itself. This is the way it is meant to be. If you liked this episode and want to hear more, don't forget to follow Climate Watch on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a quick review or share it with a friend. And if you have any suggestions for a future episode or stories you'd like to share, feel free to reach out. You can email me at fei.fei@cgtn.com or find me on my Substack newsletter, Rivers and Mountains. Until next time.